The little girl had been sitting at the restaurant table for 23 minutes when she finally looked toward the door and whispered, "Maybe he forgot me." Her voice was so quiet that the waiter almost missed it. Across from her sat an untouched glass of water, a small plate of bread, and a folded napkin she had nervously twisted into a tiny flower. She was only 8 years old, dressed in a neat blue cardigan, waiting for a man she had never met because her mother had arranged a blind dinner for herself. But the man who walked through the restaurant doors that night was not the man she was expecting. And somehow, when their eyes met, neither of them corrected the mistake. Before we continue, if you believe that kindness can change a person's life, that lonely hearts deserve a second chance, and that sometimes the smallest act of compassion can become someone's greatest memory, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to Kindness Speaks. You never know whose heart might need to hear a story like this tonight. The man at the door was 38 years old, wearing a dark gray jacket over a simple white shirt, with tired eyes that made him look older than he really was. His name was Daniel, and he had spent the last 6 years learning how to live with an emptiness he rarely allowed anyone to see. He had once been the kind of person who believed life followed a plan. He had married his college sweetheart, built a modest career as an architectural designer, and dreamed of having a family. Then, in the span of one terrible year, everything had fallen apart. His wife had died after a long illness, and the child they had been hoping for had never come. After the funeral, Daniel stopped making plans. He went to work, came home, cooked for one, and filled his evenings with silence because silence was easier than remembering. That night, he had not come to the restaurant looking for romance. His sister had practically forced him to leave the apartment, telling him that he needed to stop treating loneliness like a permanent address. Daniel had reluctantly agreed to meet a woman named Claire, a friend of a friend, for dinner. He was nervous, uncomfortable, and already considering leaving before the evening began. When he entered the restaurant, he glanced around and saw the little girl sitting alone at a table near the window. She looked toward him with an expression of sudden relief. Daniel assumed she was looking at someone behind him. Then she smiled. He almost turned around to see who had arrived, but the girl lifted her hand in a tiny wave. Daniel hesitated. He looked behind himself again. Nobody was there. The girl pointed toward the empty chair across from her. For one strange second, Daniel thought perhaps she was confused. Then she said that she was sorry for being early. Daniel slowly approached the table and asked if she was waiting for someone. The little girl nodded and said her mother had told her that a man named Daniel would be joining them. Daniel's heart stopped for a moment. He realized there had to be another Daniel. Perhaps the woman he was supposed to meet had a daughter who was waiting for him. Perhaps this was some bizarre misunderstanding. But before he could explain, the restaurant manager appeared and told him that the reservation was indeed under Daniel's name. That was the first strange coincidence. The second was that the little girl's mother had apparently called earlier to say she might be delayed because of an emergency at work. She had asked the restaurant to make sure her daughter was comfortable until she arrived. Daniel looked at the little girl again. She was trying very hard to appear brave. Her feet barely touched the floor beneath the chair, and every few seconds she glanced toward the entrance. Daniel knew he should tell the manager there had been a mistake and leave. He should find the other Daniel, contact Claire, or simply go home. But then the girl quietly asked if he could sit down because she didn't like eating alone. Something inside him broke. Daniel pulled out the chair and sat. He told himself he would stay for 5 minutes. 5 minutes became 15. The little girl introduced herself as Lily and explained that her mother had promised they would have dinner with someone special. Lily had spent the entire afternoon choosing what to wear because she wanted to make a good impression. She spoke about school, her favorite books, the drawings she had made for her mother, and the fact that she hated peas but pretended to like them because her mother said vegetables were important. Daniel listened. He did not look at his phone. He did not rush her. He simply listened. For the first time in years, he realized how strange it felt to hear someone talk without expecting anything in return. When the food arrived, Lily pushed her plate slightly toward him and asked if he liked pasta. Daniel said yes. She smiled and said her mother always burned it when she tried to cook it. Daniel laughed for the first time that day. Lily laughed too, and suddenly the restaurant did not feel quite as cold. But as the evening continued, Daniel noticed something unusual. Lily kept looking at the door. Her smile would disappear whenever someone entered. Finally, she asked him if he thought her mother was angry with her. Daniel's chest tightened. He asked why she would think that. Lily shrugged and said that adults sometimes became busy when they were sad. She had learned not to ask too many questions because her mother cried in the bathroom sometimes. She said she knew her mother loved her, but sometimes love did not stop people from being tired. Daniel did not know what to say. So he did the only thing he knew how to do. He told her the truth in the simplest way possible. He said that grown-ups could have difficult days, but none of that meant she was unwanted. He told her that sometimes people became so overwhelmed by their problems that they forgot to say the things they should say. But that never changed a child's worth. Lily stared at him for several seconds before quietly asking if he had ever been lonely. Daniel looked down at his hands. He could have lied. Instead, he nodded. He told her that he knew what it felt like to miss someone so much that even a crowded room could feel empty. He did not tell her everything about his wife. He did not tell her about the hospital corridors, the final night, or the empty side of his bed. He simply told her that sometimes people we love leave a space behind that nobody else can fill. Lily reached across the table and placed her small hand over his. She said that maybe the space did not always have to stay empty. Daniel looked at her, unable to answer. At that exact moment, a woman rushed into the restaurant. She was 35 years old, wearing a dark green coat over a cream blouse, her brown hair pulled into a hurried ponytail. Her face was pale, and she looked terrified. Her eyes immediately found Lily. The little girl jumped from her chair. The woman crossed the room quickly, dropped beside her daughter, and hugged her tightly. Then she looked at Daniel. There was confusion in her eyes. She apologized repeatedly, explaining that she had been called into an unexpected meeting and had lost track of time. She had asked a colleague to bring Lily inside and wait for her, but the colleague had misunderstood her instructions. She had never intended for Lily to sit alone. Then she realized something else. Daniel was not the man she had arranged to meet. The man named Daniel she had been expecting was someone else entirely. She looked at him in disbelief. Daniel stood and apologized for the confusion. He explained that he had been waiting for his own blind date when Lily waved to him, and because he thought she was expecting him, he had sat down. The woman looked at Lily. Lily looked at Daniel. And then Lily said something that made both adults fall silent. She said she didn't want him to leave. The woman's expression softened. Daniel knew he should go. This was not his story. This was not his family. This was not his dinner. But Lily's eyes reminded him of a loneliness he understood too well. He told them he would leave after making sure they were okay. The woman thanked him. Daniel walked toward the door. Then Lily called after him. She asked if he would come back someday. Daniel turned around. He promised he would. He did not know that promise would change 3 lives. Over the following weeks, Daniel and the woman, Claire, began seeing each other again. Not because either of them believed the mistaken dinner had magically created love, but because something genuine had happened that night. Claire was a single mother carrying responsibilities she rarely talked about. She worked long hours, managed bills, raised Lily, and tried to convince everyone around her that she was fine. Daniel was a widower who had forgotten how to let anyone close. They understood each other's exhaustion. Their relationship grew slowly. There were no dramatic declarations. There were awkward dinners, missed calls, difficult conversations, and moments when Daniel nearly pulled away because closeness frightened him. Claire sometimes worried that he was only staying because he felt sorry for them. Daniel sometimes wondered if he was trying to replace the family he had lost. And Lily watched everything. She never pushed them together. She simply continued being herself. She would leave drawings on Daniel's chair. She would ask him about buildings because he was an architect. She would save the last piece of chocolate cake for him. Once, when Daniel had a terrible day and arrived at Claire's apartment unusually quiet, Lily sat beside him without asking questions. She handed him a piece of paper.